I will start the recording. Okay. This is for the purpose of asynchronous learning. So once again, as I was saying, research and the statistics cannot be separated from one another. You will find it difficult to learn research without full understanding of statistics and vice versa. You will also understand statistics if you have a good knowledge about research. So for today, our discussion will revolve around still about research and of course statistics kasi nga sila ay sinasabi nating magkasama, no? Magkasama sila. So before I further proceed with my discussion, as I've mentioned, we are in the technological age. Part of your participation is the use of technology, especially you are already in the graduate school. I have a question that I will be giving you through my favorite Mentimeter. You go to www.mentimeter.com and try to open your Mentimeter.com. Again, you go to www.mentimeter.com and try to answer the question. After going to the Mentimeter.com, you try to answer the question, and use the code 64678296. So that will be the code that you are going to use in order for you to enter in the Mentimeter.com. And then you try to answer this question, what are the uses of statistics in research? Give at least 2 uses. I'd like to know your prior knowledge of statistics. You may answer 2 or more, at least 2, pero pwede yung damihan, no? The more the merrier. So again, you open your browser and you type www.menti.com and you will be asked of a code which is 64678296, and you answer the question, what are the uses of statistics in research, and give at least 2 uses of statistics in research. I'll be waiting for your answer. So there's already 1 entry. Nakikita ko dito sa sa gilid ko. Sa right side, bottom right, meron ng isang sumagot. Analyze data gathered. Sige. I'll give you time, mga 5 minutes to answer the question. So you need to open another browser, for you to be able to answer the question. So I have 78 participants. I have 78 audience today. Ay sana makakalahati man lang. Sige, I'll be waiting for your answer. Take your time. You have 5 minutes to answer. I'm giving you time to open your browser and kindly type www.menti.com and use the code 64678296 and answer the question, please. All right, so there are already 33, 34, 35 responses. Okay, good. Thank you for those who are participating. Thank you so much. Yan, ang dami ng sagot. Very good. Good job. Sa mga sumasagot, very good. Yung mga hindi pa sumasagot, pwede pa pong humabol. "44 answers, 44 respondents rather. Is my audio clear to everyone?
Yes po, sir.
Yes, sir.
What about my camera? What about my video?
Yes po. Yes, sir.
Yes po.
Kita po ba ako?
Yes po.
Okay, very good. Kala ko di ako makita eh. So, 48 answers. Oh, wow, marami na. Marami sumasagot. Sige. All right, there are already 55 respondents out of 80. Okay, so I think that's better na, 57 out of 80. Out of 80, pwede na yan. So I think everybody is, for those who have answered, congratulations. You hit it right. Statistics is used, especially if your research design is a quantitative research. Statistics is used to analyze data. That is very good. We need to make sense of our data through the use of statistics. Unlike qualitative research design, researches do not need statistics. Statistics is only utilized for analyzing quantitative data. As the term implies, quantitative, it is numerical. And quantitative statistics could be further subdivided or separated into two. One is descriptive statistics, and another one is inferential statistics, which we will discuss in further details later on. No, so I'm happy that the bigger words here are actually the correct answer, yung analyze data. That is correct. That is very correct. That we use research because we use statistics because we would like to analyze data that we gather. Tama rin to. Actually, before an analysis, we first collect. That's why collecting, gathering data are actually part of research. And you will only be analyzing data if you are able to gather or collect data. So it is important that you are aware on how to gather data. And it is also important, more importantly, is to analyze, because analyzing data actually would also mean making sense of the data collected. Because analyzed data is different from raw data. When you say raw data, that is the actual data that you gathered from the respondents. Let's say, for example, tinabulate mo yung 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, yung Likert scale. Raw data yon, yung actual questionnaire, yung instrument na ginamit mo. That is an example of raw data. Example, grades of the students or the teacher's performance using IPCRF. Raw data yon. But you need to make sense of those data by subjecting those data to statistics, no? Kaya I'm happy na marami ang sumagot ng tamang sagot, which is we use data because we need to analyze the data. And also, may nakita ko rito na data interpretation and to interpret data. That is also correct, no? We need to use statistics to further interpret. Analysis is different from interpretation. Analysis comes from the data that you gather. You analyze the data. Kaya nga kadalasan, when you nasa EDOC 2.8 na rito na umattend, usually when you analyze the data, you would use the phrases like it can be gleaned from the data in table 1 that, parang ganon. Parang ganon. Or analysis of the data in table 1 would reveal that. When you say those statements, ibig sabihin you're analyzing data. You can also make interpretations. Of course, it is not correct to make interpretations without analyzing the data yet. Interpretation would come in, para dun sa mga nasa EDOC 2.8, interpretation would come in when you already intellectualize the findings of your study. Intellectualizing would mean connecting your findings with the findings of the previous literature, of the previous study. Ibig sabihin, you may present previous findings that are corroborating your current findings. Ibig sabihin, corroborating, nag-agree sila sa current findings mo. Or the previous studies may be contradicting your current findings. That is an example of interpreting the data. So, meaning to say, analysis is one, but interpreting them is another one, another thing. So it is important that you make use of the correct statistical tool, and that is our agenda for this afternoon. I will teach you how to use different statistical tools in your research, especially for those who are enrolled in research. In statistics. For those who are enrolled in research, kasi part of your paper, chapter 2, would be statistical treatment. So you need to have a knowledge about statistics. For those who are enrolled in EDOC 2.8, which is seminar on research, you also need to have a knowledge of statistics, because when you defend your paper, you need to tell the panel members of the different statistical tools that you will be using and why the use of those tools. So, kaya research and statistics cannot be separated from one another. Kaya mahalaga na lahat kayo yung naka-enroll ng research and statistics ay nandito para matutunan ninyo kung paano gumamit ng research. So I hope I was able to make sense also of your answer. And thank you for those who participated for the 61 audience or participants who provided answers. Thank you so much for those very good answers. Those answers are all correct, no? Are all correct. Hinighlight ko lang yung nasa gitna na na-hit nyo yung tamang sagot, na tama yon, that when you say statistics, your main goal is to analyze data. All right? So before we proceed, do you have any clarification about the question that I raised? Wala naman? Sige. Pag may tanong lang kayo, you can raise your hand ha, para masagot ko yung tanong ninyo. Now, let us proceed to the highlight of our discussion for today, which is the use of statistics in research, or the uses of statistics in research. It is important that we are knowledgeable and skillful in identifying specific statistical treatment for every problem. By the way, the rule of thumb is that when you develop a question, when you develop problems or statement of the problems, you have to ensure, especially if your paper is a quantitative research paper, you have to ensure that the questions or the statement of the problems are measurable. No, the questions can be said measurable. We can say that the question is a measurable question. There is an appropriate statistical tool that can be provided, that can be given for every question. So meaning, the principle behind the rule is that when you write your research paper and you develop your research question, you have to ensure that each question would have a corresponding statistical treatment or a statistical tool. And that is our agenda for today. I will teach you how to identify a statistical tool for every question that you develop in your research. Okay lang ba yon? Sa palagay nyo, may tulong ba yon sa inyo or wala?
Meron po.
Okay, good.
Meron po.
Sige, sana makatulong yon. Sige, all right. Sige, thank you sa sumagot. So let's begin. So when we say statistics, we have this what we call, sabi nga kanina, we need to analyze. And one way to analyze our data is by qualitative analysis. Quality analysis, which as the term implies, is not based on the precise measurement and quantitative claims. It's been based on quality. Social analysis is frequently qualitative because of the understanding of the phenomenon under study may not require quantification, or because the phenomenon itself does not lend itself to precise measurement. So kanina may nagbigay ng tinatawag na analysis. So meaning to say that quantitative research, rather analysis, is not only applicable for quantitative research, it is also applicable for qualitative research paper. However, the only difference is that qualitative analysis would not require statistics. On the other hand, quantitative analysis would always require a statistical tool. Kaya sabi dyan, quantitative analysis which is employed on data that have been assigned some numerical value. When we say numerical value, we are referring to the values that are present in your instrument. For example, your instrument may have 5-point Likert scale, yung 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pwede siyang 6-point Likert scale, 7-point, 4-point, etc., etc. But the thing is, for your paper to be quantitative in nature, it must have some numerical value. And quantitative analysis can range from the examination of simple frequencies or frequency distribution. That is why after you conduct your research paper, after gathering your data, your statistician will ask you to tabulate your data. Tabulation would mean counting the frequencies, the most simple, very simple yet effective method in making sense of your data is the simple frequency or frequency distribution. Meaning to say, bibilangin nyo po kung ilan na sumagot ng 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. That is frequency distribution. Bibilangin nyo naman kung ilan ang nasa excellent, nasa very satisfactory, fair, and needs improvement, for example, or poor. Kung ilan na nakakuha ng 98, ng 95, ng 93, 85, etc., etc. That is frequency distribution. And then also, to the description of events or phenomena using descriptive statistics, and to the investigation of correlation and causal hypotheses using various statistical tests such as inferential statistics. So therefore, I'd like to underscore that when you say statistics, there are two major components or major parts. These are descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. They are both statistics, but they are different depending on the type of investigation that you would like to do. If your question is univariable in nature, sa Tagalog, yung question mo ay meron lamang isang variable. Example, what is the level of human resource management practices of school heads? Isa lang yung ang variable. The variable is human resource management practices. We call it univariable. Or for example, what is the level of teachers' performance in terms of the following IPCRF domains? Parang ganon. Di ba sa IPCRF, may mga indicators yon, may mga CRA na tinatawag. Or KRA. So that is an example of univariable. What is the univariable? Teachers' performance. Uni, ilan yon? Isa o dalawa?
One po.
Isa lang po.
Isa lang po, sir.
Ay, sorry. Akala ko tatlo. Isa lang. Kaya usually, if the question, babalikan niyo yung statement of the problem ninyo. If the question only has one variable or univariable, you will definitely use descriptive statistics. On the other hand, if you start correlating and if you start comparing two or more variables, it's no longer univariable. Tama ba? O, magiging ilan na? Kung hindi isa, magiging ilan na?
Dalawa.
Dalawa. Okay, very good. Pwede kaya maging sobra sa dalawa?
Yes po.
Ayun, pwede maging tatlo. Pwede maging apat. No? Pwede maging marami. So therefore, doon papasok yung by variable, by which means two, or multi-variable. Multi, which means many variables. Diba? Kaya nga meron tinatawag na univariate analysis and multivariate analysis. Nakuha niyo po ba yon? Narinig niyo na ba yon? Univariate statistics, bivariate statistics, or multivariate statistics. Kaya po, ang research and statistics ay palagi siya magkarugtong. Na hindi kayo pwedeng pumunta sa statistics kung hindi nyo pa naiintindihan yung research na sinasabi. And ganun din, later on malalaman nyo na sa pag-compute pala ng sample size, kung ilan ang magiging respondents natin, kailangan pala alam natin muna yung kung ano yung statistical tool na na gagamitin natin. So it's important that we know that, no? So pag sinabi nating bivariate analysis, two, as the term implies, by. Pag multi or multi, more than two. Kaya multivariate analysis. So if you have a univariate variable, definitely gagamit ka ng univariate statistics, which is descriptive statistics. Meanwhile, if you have bivariate variable or multivariate variable, Meaning to say, gagamit ka na ngayon ng bivariate statistics or multivariate statistics. So ano nang gagamitin mo? Descriptive pa rin ba? O hindi na? Ayan, nanahimik na sila. Ulitin ko. Dalawa lamang po ng klase ng statistics. Descriptive and inferential. Descriptive statistics is used when you have a univariate question that require... Wait lang ako muna, kayo naman. Kanina nagtatanong ako, di kayo sumasagot. Mamaya, tatanungin ko kayo. Wait lang, tapusin ko muna. Ulitin ko yung sinabi ko para mas malinaw. So ulitin ko. Descriptive statistics is used when you have a univariate question. Saan nyo makikita yung univariate question? Sa statement of the problem. Univariate question, doon yung malalaman. No? Usually, IV, tsaka, or kaya DV yun. Univariate question yun. So therefore, gagamit ka ng univariate statistics or what we call descriptive statistics. Now, there are instances na nagko-correlate ka na. Ibig sabihin, you would like to know the relationship of your IV to your DV. Or you would like to know whether which is more effective, the blended learning, Group A, or the use of self-learning module, Group B. So nagko-comparison ka ngayon, meron kang Group A at saka Group B. Kanina, meron kang independent variable kasi nagko-correlate ka at saka dependent variable. So ngayon, hindi lang univariate, parang may dalawa na variables. Kasi bakit? Gusto mo nang malaman yung effect ng IV sa DV. Or gusto mo na mag-compare ng dalawa na variables. O, ano na ngayon ang gagamitin mo? Descriptive statistics pa rin ba or hindi na?
Hindi na po.
Ha?
Hindi na po.
Hindi na po. Ano na po ang gagamitin po?
Inferential.
Differential.
Yun, very good. Ang galing naman. So ibig sabihin, dalawa lamang ang pagbabasihan natin. Descriptive and inferential statistics. And kung mapapansin niyo yung mga naka-enroll sa statistics dito, hindi ko kayo agad binanatan ng statistics. Anong binanat ko sa inyo? Banat talaga, no? Binanatan ko muna kayo ng konting knowledge ng research. No? Kasi mahirap intindihin ng statistics kung wala kayong knowledge sa research. Kasi meron tinatawag na univariable and bivariable or multivariable. So ngayon, malinaw na pala na ang statistics pala ay laging nakadepende doon sa klase ng questions na binuo natin. No? Clear po ba? Pa-thumbs up nga po kung clear sa lahat yon. Na merong relasyon yung statistical treatment na gagamitin natin doon sa statement of the problem na binuo natin. Pa-thumbs up nga po kung malinaw po yon. Ayan, parang ilan lang ang merong thumb. Siguro na po to. O sige, kahit ano na lang, index finger na lang. Pa-index finger nga po. Parang naputol yata yung thumb. Ayoko ng middle finger ha. O sige, pa-heart na lang po. Parang mas maganda yata kung heart. Pa-heart nga po. Ayan, may nakita kong heart. 18, 20, 23, 24, 27, 32. Oh, very good. Maraming heart. Maraming salamat. So yung hindi nag-heart, bahala kayo. Hindi ko kayo babatiin ng Happy Valentine's Day sa February 14. So ibig sabihin, malinaw na ngayon na yung klase ng statistics na gagamitin natin ay depende sa question na nabuo natin sa research. Kaya importante na malinaw yung ating IV and DV, na malinaw yung mga variables natin, na malinaw kung anong klase yung question natin, whether the question is univariable, bivariable, or multivariable. Kasi Kapag univariable, ulitin natin, ang gagamitin natin ay, ano nga ulit, pag univariable?
Descriptive.
Descriptive. Statistic.
Kapag
Descriptive, sir.
very good, very good, very good. Maraming sumasagot. Kapag 2 or more variables, ano nang gagamitin?
Inferential.
Salamat sa Panginoon, naintindihan ko ng difference ng inferential at saka descriptive, no? Kaya meron tinatawag na bivariable or multivariable. Gagamitan mo na siya ng bivariate analysis and multivariate analysis. Yun. Kaya yun ang mga terminologies na dapat nyo maintindihan para maintindihan ninyo kung anong klaseng statistics ang gagamitin ninyo para sa inyong research paper. Alright? So malinaw na po ba ang ating difference ng descriptive at saka inferential? Kasi may mga iba-iba pang statistics. Halimbawa, kapag bivariable, iba pa yung ginagamit na statistics kapag multivariable. Parehas sila inferential, pero yung specific treatment magkaiba na. Halimbawa, pag nag-correlate ka ng dalawang variables, pwedeng typical na Pearson R lang yan, no? Pearson product moment correlation, Pearson R, 2 variables, no? Pero kapag nag-correlate ka na ng 2 or more variables, hindi na basta Pearson R yan, pwede ka nang gumamit ng correlation and regression analysis. So mamaya di-discuss natin yun. Kaya dapat alam ninyo kung ano yung mga differences noon. Halimbawa naman, nag-compare ka ng dalawang grupo, the use of blended learning and, for example, modular learning approach. Pag sinabing blended learning, may combination yan ng technology at saka ng walang technology, no? Traditional method. Tapos, gagamitin mo dyan t-test. Pero, if you are already comparing 2 or more variables, halimbawa, blended learning, modular learning, at saka independent learning. Ano ibig sabihin ng independent learning? Ito yung mga nag-aaral ng mag-isa, ng kahit walang guidance. Ito ay applicable sa grad school, hindi pwede ito sa elementary. No? Independent learning. So, meron ka ng 3 na kino-compare. So, hindi na t-test yun. Kasi more than 2 nang kino-compare mo. So, ang gagamitin mo na doon is ANOVA or Analysis of Variance. Ayun, nakita nyo ba ang difference noon? So, mamaya, i-discuss pa natin yun ng mas detalyado. So, ngayon, para mas maintindihan nyo kung bakit importante ang statistics. Kasi even in computing your sample size, you will be required to present the statistical treatment that you will be using in your paper, no? Kaya importante na yung inyong statistics ay malinaw at alam ninyo kung anong klaseng statistical tool ang gagamitin ninyo. Kasi lalo yung mga nasa research dito, Research EDUC 202 at saka EDUC 208, importante na alam nyo kung paano mag-derive ng population or sample size. Kaya lang this time, using the technology na. Hindi ko na kayo pakukumpute ng manual. Kasi yung manual, pang traditional na lang po yun. We are already in the technological age. So gusto ko matutunan nyo rin ang research using technology. Kasi ang research, dati namang madali na ang research. Minsan na nagtuturo lang nagpapahirap, no? Kahit noon pa. Kaya lang, mas maganda ngayon dahil technology, mas madali ang lahat. May mga softwares. Mamaya matututunan nyo SPSS, ituturo ko sa inyo kung paano yon. Pero itong ituturo ko sa inyo ngayon kung paano mag-compute ng sample size. What is sample size? Sample size is your target respondents, no? Usually you have huge number of respondents that you cannot accommodate all of them in your paper. So what you're going to do is you need to compute for your target sample size. And in computing the sample size, there is already a software which is what we call G power. Narinig nyo na ba yon? G power. Narinig na, hindi pa?
Hindi pa po daw.
Hindi pa po.
Hindi pa. Anong power ang narinig
Hindi
niyo?
pa po daw.
Baka ibang power yung narinig niya. O sige. Pero yung G power na yan, that is the
No, sir.
Miss Lovelyn, yes po. Miss Calieja, are you saying something? Ay, hindi.
Nothing, sir.
Oh, yun. Hindi ko naintindihan. Anyway, sa G power, I will be teaching you now, part of statistical knowledge is for you to learn how to compute for your appropriate sample size. And then while may video ko i-present, while listening to the video, you will understand that in using the software, you will be asked of the specific statistical tool or treatment that you will be using. So therefore, hindi ka makakapag-compute nito kung hindi mo alam kung anong statistical treatment ang gagamitin mo. Meaning to say that the prerequisite in the computation of the G power analysis or your sample size computation would be the statistical tool that you will be using in your paper. So sana yung 81 na nandito ay makinig sa video na ipipresent ko. I will be presenting a video so that you will learn how a sample size is to be computed using this what we call G power or what we call G power sample size, or they also call it G power analysis. No? So ibig sabihin, pag ito ay napakinggan ninyo, makinig kayo mabuti, hindi nyo na kailangan mag-manual computation. Can you see my screen? Can you see?
Po, sir.
All right. So
Yes,
all
Doc.
you do po is to listen to the
Yes po.
Thank you so much. Just listen and later on malalaman nyo kung bakit sinasabi ko na kailangan yung statistical test sa pagko-compute ng inyong sample size. Para sa mga nasa EDUC 208 na advisee ko, ito na po yung ipapagamit ko sa inyo. Ayoko na ng tinatawag na Sloven's formula. Luma na yon, manual yon. Ito tawag ito, software to na downloadable. It's called G Power. Pwede nyo hanapin yan sa Google platform, and then i-type nyo lang and then i-download nyo, mapupunta kayo rito sa G Power parang calculator. All right? So to further explain to you the G Power, wait lang. I-stop ko muna yung i-post ko muna yung aking recording. All right. Before we continue, do you have any question about the use of statistics in the computation of your sample size? This time, it's G power analysis. Yun na yung mga wordings nyo ngayon, ha? When you say sample size computation, it's no longer Sloven's formula kasi matagal na panahon ng ginagamit yon. The updated right now is the G power computation or G power analysis or the a priori computation. The good thing about this a priori or G power analysis is that you need not to manually compute for your sample size. All you need to do is to download that in the Google and then input nyo lang yung mga dapat nyong i-input, and my reminder is that you should be correct about the use of statistical test or tool that you're going to use, or else magiging mali rin po yung sample size computation. Another thing, you're going to use the medium effect size and the 0.21 yata yon. And of course, you need to be aware of how many predictor variable you will be having in your paper. As mentioned by the video, your predictor variable is also known as your independent variable. So that is why you should be aware of how many IV or independent variable you will be utilizing in your paper. So any clarification about the video? Mas madali ba mag-compute ngayon ng sample size o mas mahirap? Any comment about the use of G-power analysis?
Mas magiging madali, sir.
Mas magiging madali. So aaralin nyo lang. That video can be found online. Nasa YouTube naman siya. Kaya hinayaan ko na magsalita yung nagpi-present ng video para makarinig naman kayo ng ibang accent. ng British accent, hindi Filipino accent na English. But then even if I discuss that, I will be discussing the same, no? But I am using the power of technology right now, and I am exposing you to different videos that you can also watch, no? Meaning to say, I'm teaching you that everything can be learned online now. Actually, very helpful ngayon ang mga YouTube natin, and it would be nicer if you have an access to these YouTube videos that are found online, because that will help you further improve your knowledge about quantitative analysis, no? So let us proceed. Let us proceed to our next discussion. So when you are actually making sense of your data, sabi nga kanina ng mga sumagot, analysis of data. If you would like to analyze the data, you need to ask yourself first, do you like to describe rather the status of phenomenon, describing the status of phenomenon. Example, the phenomenon is the utilization of online learning. The phenomenon is the utilization of modular learning. Or the phenomenon is the effectiveness of the LAC sessions that you are doing in your school. No? If you are prescribing a phenomenon, then you may use this what we call central tendencies or variables or other descriptive measures. In short, measures of central tendencies are example of descriptive research. So once again, if you are describing from the word descriptive, you are describing the phenomenon. Therefore, measures of central tendencies ang gagamitin natin dyan. No? Now, if you are not going to describe the status of phenomenon, if you would like to compare one distribution of scores to another, example, you would like to compare the performance of those students under online learning and those students who are using module, if you're comparing, then hindi na central tendencies ang gagamitin mo. You may use chi-square or critical ratio because you are now comparing. Ang gagamitin mo ron is chi-square. But if you're not going to compare one distribution of scores to another, if for example, you like to compare the means of two or more groups, kanina, one distribution to another, parang two groups. Dito, two or more groups. If your answer is yes, then you may utilize, the next question is, how many means are you comparing? Kasi nakalagay yan, two or more eh. How many means are you comparing? If your answer is 2, then you are going to use t-test or analysis of variable. So meaning to say that t-test is utilized if you would like to compare two groups, two means. You're comparing two means. But still, if you're comparing two or more groups, kung hindi lang dalawa, baka naman ang kino-compare mo ay baka naman hindi lang dalawa, more than 2. Kanina sabi natin dalawa, kaya gagamit ka ng t-test. But if you are comparing more than 2, then you are now going to use analysis of variance or ANOVA. No? So t-test is used if you would like to compare 2 groups. So parang review nyo na rin to para sa mga magko-compre. Kasi tinatanong niya sa compre, no? But if you're going to compare more than 2 groups, therefore, ANOVA na po ang gagamitin dyan, or F-test. Kanina, 2 groups, T-test. Ngayon, 2 or more groups, F-test na po siya, or analysis of variance. Ngayon, if you are not still comparing 2 groups, baka naman may iba ka pang gagawin, no? Like, for example, are you trying to determine how closely performance on what variable predicts performance on another? Parang ito ay pag sinabing closely performance, parang closely correlation, no? If no, then think again. You either need a statistics not covered in these 2 chapters, or you may have made a mistake in your thinking. But if yes, syempre that is definitely a combination of 2 or more variables to predict an outcome. Kaya merong predictor variable and outcome variable. Doon na papasok yung tinatawag na correlation. When you say predictor variable, that is also synonymous or the same with independent variable. No? The predictor variable. When you say naman outcome variable, that is also the same as your dependent variable. So may bago kayong terms ngayon na mga nakuha, predictor variable or independent variable, outcome variable or dependent variable. So if that is your concern, then use multiple correlation analysis. No? Combination of 2 or more variables. If you want to measure the extent of influence of predictor variables to the criterion variable, by the way, outcome variable or criterion variable or dependent variable, they are the same. No? Teka lang, nakakontinue ba yung ating recording? Ayan. Okay, kuna. All right? So if you want to measure the extent of influence of predictor variables to the criterion variable, then you use regression analysis. Kung kanina, combination of 2 or more, multiple correlation lang yan. Pero if you are talking about influence of predictor variables to the criterion variable, then you are going to use regression analysis. Kung hindi pa din yan ang major concern mo, if your concern is about, are you trying to determine a curvy linear relationship? Ibig sabihin, hindi siya basta linear. Curvy linear relationship. Paano kaya yung curvy linear na yan? Paano kaya natin malalaman kung kailan natin gagamitin ang curvy linear? When there is a curvy linear relationship, then therefore merong tinatawag na beta coefficient. Yun ang gagamitin natin. If you still know, kung hindi pa rin curvy linear ang iyong gustong malaman, if you are holding a third variable that is constant, so this time, hindi lang basta independent and dependent variable, meron ka pang third variable that is constant, then you may use partial correlation. Partial correlation, why? Because there is a third wheel, no? Kaya partial pa lang. Kaya pag may third wheeler, hindi yan totoong relationship kasi lang yan, partial lang yan. Parang sa love life lang, no? Pag may third wheel ka, may ka third wheel, hindi yan straight relationship. Hindi siya linear relationship. It's partial relationship. Again, if you are not holding a third variable, then you use Pearson correlation. If you are doing a straight relationship between IV and DV, therefore, Pearson correlation ang gagamitin mo. All right? So this figure is a very good figure for you to understand the inferential statistics, because those are including descriptive rather. Kasi the measures of central tendencies, yun yung mga mean, median, mode, skewedness, etc., standard deviation, quartile deviation. Those are what we call measures of central tendencies. And those are what we call descriptive statistics. On the other hand, if you are already holding two or more variables, as we mentioned before, bi or multivariables, then you are now going to use comparing or correlating. You are either comparing or correlating. Then ito na yung mga sinasabi natin, either correlation or ANOVA or beta coefficient. And this is we call Vockel's algorithm for selecting a statistical procedure. No? So the reason why I am recording this so that you can go back just in case you are still confused with the use of the descriptive and inferential, madali niyo siyang mababalikan. Panoorin niyo lang yung video. And kanina, kaya ako pinos yung video nung nag-play ako ng another video, because that is not my video. I am not allowed to record video that is not mine. Dapat original yung video ko. Or else, kumbaga sa research ako ay makakaso ng plagiarism. Alright? Kaya kanina napansin nyo, pinos ko doon sa nung nag-play ako ng video. Now, when we say statistical test, as I've been mentioning, there is this what we call measures of central tendency. What are those? Mean, median, and mode. So the purpose of measures of central tendency, the typical value or representative value of a mass of quantitative data. Ibig sabihin, there is a large or huge number of data and you would like to know the representativeness, no? Ibig sabihin parang majority. So, saan ginagamit yung mean? Mean is used, the assumption is there is an appropriate for interval and ratio variable. Again, mean is used for interval and ratio variable. Pag sinabing interval, ito yung merong 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or ratio, merong 1:2, 1:5, doon ginagamit ang mean. Kailan natin ginagamit ang mean? When the data is ordinal in nature. Ordinal, ibig sabihin ng ordinal, order, ibig sabihin rank. Saka natin ginagamit ang median. When you say mean, this is average, no? And kung tayo ay nasa makalumang panahon, ang formula nito is X bar is equal to the summation of frequencies over capital letter N or total number of elements. So, di ba? Ganun noong unang panahon, dapat kabisado mo yung formula. Pero ngayon hindi na. Meron na ngayong mga software kayong pwedeng gamitin, like SPSS and even Excel. Pwede nang gamitin ng Excel. And for this statistical tool, by the way, after I discussed this, alam ko meron akong video about the use of SPSS. Hindi ko na uulitin yung discussion. Ipapanood ko na lamang po sa inyo yung video about the use of SPSS in statistics. No? So again, when we say mode, pag sinabing mode sa Tagalog niyan, kung ilang beses mo siya nakita, bibilangin mo kung gaano siya kadalas, no? Nagpakita sa inyo. Yun ang mode na sinasabi. So this is used for nominal. Pag sinabi nating nominal data, these are categorical. Nominal. Halimbawa, gender is an example of nominal. Occupation, race, location or city, for example. So these are non-numerical. These are nominal or categories. For example, position in DepEd is an example of nominal data. When you say naman interval, these are numbers. Halimbawa, IPCRF grade, no? Or the teacher's performance, or grade of the students. Or yung lahat ng data that would present a Likert scale like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we call them interval data. So those are what we call measures of central tendency. Meron din tinatawag na measures of dispersion. Ibig sabihin, gusto nating malaman kung gaano kakalat or ka-disperse. Tagalog kasi ng disperse, yung pagkakalat ng data mo. Halimbawa, age. Sa DepEd, gaano ba kakalat ang age? O gaano ba kakaiba? Gaano ba nagkakaiba-iba ang age ng mga tao sa DepEd? Kaya ang tawag dyan is degree of spread or variability of a given set of data. Halimbawa, gusto niyo malaman sa mga teachers. Sa mga teachers, merong as early as 21 or 22. Meron din mga 62 or 61, parang ganon. Ang tanong doon, gaano sila kasabog? Gaano ka-variable? Gaano yung pagkakaiba-iba ng mga age range ng mga teachers? No? O ganon din, for example, sa PSDS. Gaano ba ang age, gaano ba yung dispersion ng age ng mga PSDSs? Mga bata ba o mga matatanda na, o mga nasa edad na 60 to 65? O meron bang mga katulad ko na medyo bata pa, 42? Parang ganon. Kaya if you would like to know the variability, ang tawag doon, measures of dispersion. So maliwanag yun ha. Iba ang central tendency, iba po ang dispersion. And when you say dispersion, there are 3 items under dispersion. We have the range. Pag sinabing range, you are describing the extreme scores. Halimbawa, sa PSDS, yun ang example ko kasi yun ang alam kong data eh. So far, ako 42. Di ko alam kung meron pang mas bata sa akin. Meron din akong alam na PSDS na 64 na next school year ay pa-retire na. Meron akong alam na this year mag-retire na sa PSDS October. So 65 na siya, so magre-retire na siya. So extreme, ibig sabihin pala, ang age range ng PSDSs sa SDO Bulacan from 42 kung ako yung pinakabata up to 64. O dahil 65 hindi na pwede, compulsory retirement na yon, pwede ko sabihin na 64.75. Ibig sabihin, papunta pa lang siya rin sa retirement. Kasi hindi pa masabi na 65 eh. Hindi pwedeng isama ang 65 kasi alam yan ng mga taga-DepEd na nandito na 65 is compulsory retirement na. Pero pwede na mag-retire as early as 60. Pero pwede ka pa mag-extend hanggang 65. So, ang tawag doon is range. It will describe the extreme numbers of scores from 42, for example, to 64. Another measures of dispersion is quartile deviation. Quarter. Ilan kaya pag sinabing quarter? Ilan? Quarter. Pag sinabing quarter, ano layman's term ng quarter? Baka merong math teacher dito.
4 po. 4.
4, very good.
4.
Very good, very good. Analyzing the semi-interquartile range of scores or item values. Ito yung pag hinati mo sa 4, yung deviation. Quartile deviation yon. Kaya lang, bibihirang gamitin itong quartile deviation. Ang mas ginagamit, yung range at saka standard deviation. Ano ibig sabihin ng standard deviation? Pag sinabing deviation sa Tagalog, sa ISO tayo, sa DepEd tayo ay ISO. When you are not doing the required procedure, you are deviating from the procedure. You are deviating from the standards, for example. Ang tawag doon, deviation. Ngayon, sa statistics, meron din tinatawag na standard deviation. Kumbaga, kung ang mean or average, halimbawa, sige sa PSDS na lang ulit, kung ang average age ay 50 for example, meron tinatawag na standard deviation. Ito yung deviation of values from the mean. Deviation of values from the mean. And for higher statistical inferences like those involving coefficients of correlation and standard scores, ginagamit po yung standard deviation. So paano siya ginagamit? Halimbawa, the mean scores of PSDSS in SDO Bulacan is 50. 50. And the standard deviation is 10. Example lang yun ha. Pag sinabi natin standard deviation, either plus or minus sign yan. Plus or minus. Ibig sabihin ng plus, meron nandun sa left side at meron nandun sa right side. Kaya plus or minus. Plus a negative sign. So bakit merong standard deviation? Halimbawa, ulitin ko, mean ay 50. So ibig sabihin ng plus or minus, yung mean na yon mag-minus ka sa 50. 50 minus 10 ilan?
40 po. 40.
40 po.
40.
40. Kala ko nahirapan kayo eh. 50 minus 10 is 40. Oh, very good. Ang galing naman mag-subtraction. O sige, mag-addition naman tayo kasi plus minus eh. Plus minus kasi yan eh. Oh, 50 plus 10. Sige nga. Tinan ko talaga
60.
Walang kahirap-hirap naman pala sa addition. Pwede na siguro mag-ano tayo, higher level ng mathematics. So, ibig sabihin, 50 minus 10 is 40 and 50 plus 10 is 60. Meaning to say, pag sinabing mean and standard deviation, ginagamit siya sa lahat ng interval data. Sabihin numerical data. Bakit? Para malaman natin yung measures of dispersion. Ibig sabihin pala, yung dispersion or pagkakakalat-kalat ng mga edad ng mga PSDS, tinatagalog ko na ha para mas malinaw sa inyo. Nakakalat pala ang age ng mga PSDSs from 40 to 60. Yun ang meaning ng mean and standard deviation. Because that will measure the extent of variability, the degree of spread of or variability of a given set of data. So yun po ang meaning. Kaya ang compre hindi na yan nagpapa-compute. Usually pinapa-analyze na sa inyo kung ano yung meaning. Actually, sa mga magko-compre, para ko na rin kayong nire-review. Kasi ito yung mga kailangan yung malaman, no? At kahit di kayo magko-compre sa thesis writing, that's how you analyze, sabi nga kanina, data analysis. Tama. Ang ginagawa ko ngayon, I'm teaching you how to analyze data. I will not teach you how to compute. Because computation nowadays is through the use of technology. But I will teach you how to make sense of the statistics. Kaya nga ang title natin is Uses of Statistics in Research. So any question of this about measures of central tendency and measures of dispersion before I proceed to the next slide. Gusto ko kasi malinaw before I proceed to the next slide. Meron po ba tayong katanungan mga kapatid sa pananampalataya? Mga kasamahan ko sa DepEd, mga colleagues natin sa DepEd, meron po ba kayong katanungan dito sa A and B na to? Pwede magsalita ng wala kung wala. Silence means none. Naku po, napaka-reactive naman ng aking mga audience.
None po, sir.
Mag-type na lang kayo pag gayon yung magsalita. Pwede kayo mag-type dito sa chat box. Kindly type in your answer and later on we will draw the winner of the day. Ang mapapanalunan po ay isang relos na galing sa Divisoria. Pag po gusto niyo, pakimay na lang po. Paano? Wala. Isa lang ang sumagot, si Brian. Brian Berba. Oh, napaka-reactive ng aking mga audience ngayon. Wala din, sabi ni Miss Argeline Ramo. Yan, sige. Kayo naman, nakikinig na nga lang kayo, mag-yes or no na lang, hindi pa makasagot. Sige. So those are the first two statistical tests. Ayan, dumadami ng sagot. Wala po. None. Very good. Ibig sabihin, maliwanag so far ang aking na i-discuss, no? So the next part of our discussion would be yung letter C. Ayan. Ang tawag dito is measures of location. And we call them percentiles, Ayan, gusto ko yung sagot na wale. Sabi ni Maria Divina siya. Wale daw siya na sa ano kaya wale? Percentiles, quartiles, and deciles. Pag sinabi natin percentiles, ay madaling-madali yan, no? The assumption is that you would like to get the percent of cases below a particular rank position. Quartiles, 4, analyzing the value of the variable based on the quarter position. And deciles, analyzing the value of the variable, the percentage being taken in units of 10 divided by 10 yan. So percentiles, quartiles, deciles. Ngayon, mas madalas gamitin dyan ang percentage. Pero as I've mentioned, hindi nyo problema yan kasi napakadali niyan. No? Napakadali na mag-compute na. Other descriptive measures, ito nabanggit ko na, percent and proportion. When I say percent, standardizing for size, looking for a subgroup in relation to the whole. And when I say proportion, parang ratio and proportion, comparing the relative size of a subgroup as against another subgroup. So proportion yan ang tawag dyan. And then, of course, meron din tinatawag na skewedness. No? Skewedness would mean describing the symmetry or asymmetry, either whether there is a normal skewedness or abnormal skewedness. No? Pag sinabing skewedness, parang kumbaga nakapaling, paling sa kanan or paling sa kaliwa. Yun ang ibig sabihin niyan. Baka more than sa right or positive or more than sa left. Kaya pag sinabing perfect bell-shaped curve, ang tawag doon is perfect symmetry. No? Ibig sabihin, the distribution is normal. No? Pag halimbawa ang age, example, ang age ay pumaling papunta sa kanan, ibig sabihin plus. Ibig sabihin nun, mas maraming mas may edad, no? Sa PSDS. Pero kapag yan ay tinabilite at nagkaroon ng skewedness towards the left, ibig sabihin negative, minus, mas marami ang mas bata na below 50 rather. So yun ang ibig sabihin ng skewedness. Meron din namang kurtosis. Pag sinabing kurtosis, describing pickedness or the nature of the distribution hump and tails. Kurtosis, yun ang pinakamataas. So doon ma-determine yung pinakamataas. Pag sinabing pickedness, yung hump yun ng bell-shaped curve. So malalaman yung peak, kumbaga sa Mayon volcano, yung pinakatuktok ng Mayon volcano. So doon malalaman yung pinakamaraming yung pinaka-age na na marami na makikita natin na distribution ng mga PSDS. Halimbawa, ang lumabas sa kurtosis ay 55. Ibig sabihin, karamihan na nasa peak na age ng mga PSDSs ay 55, nandun sila sa pinakarurok, pickedness, no? So we are done with descriptive statistics. Meron din tinatawag na inferential. So letter E is an example of inferential statistics, and the first one is Pearson R, or what we call measures of correlation. So the purpose is to describe whether or not variables are correlated and describe the nature and extent of relationship between, kung dalawa lamang, or among variables kung marami kayong kino-correlate. No? So the assumption is that the measure of linear correlation of two variables which are either ratio or interval. Ibig sabihin, in short, Pearson R is used if your data sets are numerical. Ibig sabihin, number. Ibig sabihin, bawa, age and IQ. Parang gusto mong malaman na habang ang tao ba ay nagkakaedad, tumataas ba yung IQ? Di ba ang IQ ay merong scores yan pag nagpa-IQ test tayo? O meron kang IBDV. Pearson R ang pwede mong gamitin doon. Or another example, monthly income and academic performance. Monthly income is money. Numerical siya. And then academic achievement, for example, ay grades. So numerical din siya. So gagamitin lang natin ang Pearson R if the variables are numerical in nature, either ratio or interval. Yun po yung assumption doon ha. Kapag naman po you are correlating two ordinal variables, ibig sabihin variables that are ranked in nature, halimbawa first, second, third, fourth, fifth, parang ganon. Meron kang ranking. Ang gagamitin mo doon ay Spearman-Rho rank. Halimbawa, you would like to correlate, halimbawa meron kang dalawang kinuwang judge o tatlong judges o dalawang judge muna. And then nagbigay siya ng ranking doon sa pina-evaluate ninyo. And then kinorelate mo. Hindi ka gagamit ng Pearson R. Kasi yung value mo is ordinal or rank in nature. Ang gagamitin mo ron is Spearman-Rho rank. Kaya nga Rho rank. So yun na kagad yung ano siya. Yun kagad ang inyong clue na dapat ang variable ninyo ay ordinal. Spearman-Rho rank. Kapag naman ginamit nyo is phi coefficient or phi coefficient, this time hindi numerical ang inyong data or hindi rin rank or ordinal. Kung hindi, ang data ninyo ay nominal dichotomous variables. Real nominal dichotomous variables. Halimbawa, you would like to know the relationship between gender and their status in society. Tapos pag sinabi mong gender, define mo siya according sa batas, ang gender natin ay male and female. So far, according sa batas, dalawa pa lang ang gender natin sa Pilipinas. So ano yun? Dichotomous yun. Pag sinabing dichotomous, dalawa lang yung pagpipilian mo. Nominal siya or categories. Pag sinabing nominal, non-numerical. So gender is an example of real nominal dichotomous. And you would like to determine whether the gender would have a relationship with the social status in society. Pag sinabing social status, for example, we will use, for example, yung pagiging rich or poor. Dalawa lang naman yun eh, poor or rich. So sino ba ang poor at saka sino ba ang richer? Yung males ba or females? Ganon. So kapag kinorelate mo yung dalawang real nominal dichotomous variables, then you're going to use phi coefficient or phi coefficient. If you are going naman to correlate between a real dichotomous variable and an interval variable, ibig sabihin, gender is an example of real dichotomous variable. And gusto mong malaman kung sino ba yung matataas ng IQ, yung male ba o yung female. Kapag sinabing IQ, yan ay numerical kasi may scores yan eh, no? O saka ka ngayon gagamit ng point by serial because you are correlating a real dichotomous variable and an interval variable. So ibig sabihin pala, anong lesson natin ngayon bago ko tapusin to? Hindi basta-basta ina-identify yung hindi basta-basta nagsasabi ng kung anong statistics ang gagamitin mo. Aalamin mo muna kung anong klaseng data meron ka. Sana clear sa lahat 'yon. O ito pa yung isa, multiple correlation. Correlation between a real dichotomous variable, sorry. Parang naulit, sorry. Ano 'yan? Doon 'yan sa Itong multiple correlation, as the term implies, you are correlating two or more variables. Mali itong nakasulat dito ha. Sorry, typographical error. When you say multiple correlation, as the term implies, hindi na siya dichotomous, hindi na dalawa. Hindi na two variables, multiple, no? Possible na three variables. So therefore, your purpose is to correlate more than two variables, no? So doon ipapasok yung multiple correlation. Pag sinabi namang correlation of variables, partialing out the influence of a third variable, example, you would like to know whether the leadership style of the school heads would have an effect on teachers' performance. Pero iniisip mo na pwede nakakaapekto rin na yung sa performance ng teacher ay hindi lang basta leadership style ng school heads. Baka naman dahil yun sa sa IQ ng mga teachers. Kaya siya magaling magturo kasi hindi lang dahil sa leadership ng teacher kundi dahil sa IQ. So you would like to partial out the influence of a third variable, which is yung sinasabi kong IQ. Kaya kung kanina IV, DV, ito meron ka na sa gitna meron kang line sa gitna nakalagay intelligence quotient. Kasi baka mamaya parang iniisip mo baka nakakaapekto baka nagko-contribute din yung IQ doon sa performance ng teacher. Yung performance ng teacher ay hindi lang dahil sa leadership, sa situational leadership, sa technological leadership ng isang school head. So ang tawag doon ay partial correlation in nature. Meron din tinatawag na multiple regression analysis. This is describing the correlation among variables, and this time meron ng tinatawag na cause and effect relationship, multiple correlation and regression analysis. Ito ay pwede ka nang mag-predict. Pwede ka nang mag-determine ng influence. Pwede ka nang mag-determine ng impact. So again, the words are impact, predict, influence. Gagamitin mo na multiple regression analysis, no? So, still, itong correlation na to ay part ng inferential. But there are other inferential statistics. Basta if your data are bivariable or multivariable in nature, inferential stat na kagad yun. To continue, another group of inferential statistics, yung tinatawag na students t-test or what we call one sample chi-sample test, no? Ano yung assumption? Testing a hypothesis about the mean of a normally distributed population using a one sample group, no? Ano ibig sabihin ng one sample group? Isa lang yung grupo mo, pwedeng halimbawa isang grade 11 lang. And then you would like to test the hypothesis about, for example, kung t-test yan, hati mo sa dalawa, at gusto mo malaman kung which is more effective, yun nga, yung blended learning ba or tinatawag nating learning modular approach. Meron din tinatawag na Wilcoxon test or t-test of correlated means or what we call significance of difference between the two groups. Ang pinagkaiba ng dalawa, yung isa, normally distributed population. So dapat dito, pag sinabing normally distributed population, babalikan mo yung skewedness mo. Sa skewedness dapat, hindi siya towards leaning to the left or leaning to the right. Perfect bell shape siya kapag nagkaroon ka ng pag nag-test ka ng skewedness. So therefore, babalikan mo yung skewedness result. If the distribution of the population is normal in nature, ibig sabihin, students t-test. So pag hindi naging normal, pwede kang gumamit ng t-test of correlated means. Wilcoxon, or what we call another t-test is Mann-Whitney-U. Hindi Mann-Whitney-Houston Mann-Whitney-U test or t-test of independent means. Yung kanina, correlated means ang dinidifferentiate mo, Wilcoxon yun. Kapag naman nag-test ka ng independent means, Mann-Whitney U ang gagamitin mo because you would like to determine the significance of difference between two independent groups. Pag sinabing two independent, they are not dependent from one group to another. Independent siya. And of course, to continue, we have F-test one way or what we call Kruskal-Wallis Test. Kruskal-Wallis. This is using case samples. So your goal is to determine the significance of differences among 3 or more independent groups. Kanina, kung natatandaan ninyo kanina, yung bago mag-Kruskal-Wallis, Mann-Whitney U. Baka kasi lumabas sa compre nyo, dapat alam nyo yung pagkakaiba-iba. Pag sinabing two independent groups ang dinedetermine mo na differences, Mann-Whitney U. Pero kapag tatlo na ang iyong i-determine, gagamit ka na ng Kruskal-Wallis. You would like to determine the differences among 3 or more independent groups. But the condition is that the data are in the interval strength. Ibig sabihin na interval strength, ano siya, numerical, hindi siya categorical. Meron din naman tinatawag na F-test two-way, kanina one-way. Kung F-test one-way, ito naman ay tinatawag na F-test two-way, kanina Kruskal-Wallis, ito naman Friedman test. The function of two-way F plus, the interactive effect. No? Pag sinabing interactive effect, meron ng another variable that is interacting. Kaya kadalasan, aside from an ANOVA, itong number 6, papunta na tayo ron sa ANCOVA. Parang analysis of covariance. Ibig sabihin, may iba pa na pwedeng nakakaapekto doon sa variables na yon. So ang tawag doon is ANCOVA, hindi ANOVA, ANCOVA. Using case samples plus interaction effect. So this is an extension of ANOVA. By the way, when you say F-test, automatic yung ANOVA yun, ha? So ito yung ANOVA one-way, meron ding ANOVA two-way. Kaya lang, merong assumption yung ANOVA sa paggamit sa kanila. No, malalaman mo kung Kruskal-Wallis or Friedman, one-way or two-way yung ANOVA mo. Ngayon, merong another may function pa yung ANOVA, the extension of ANOVA, which is ANCOVA naman ito. ANCOVA or analysis of covariance. This is allowing for the correlation between initial and final scores, covariance analysis effects adjustment in the final score or terminal score, which allow for differences in some terminal variables. Ibig sabihin nito, pag sinabing initial and final scores, kung dati ang kino-compare mo lang, ang dinedetermine mong kino-compare mo ay yung post-test. Halimbawa, nag-administer ka ng online learning. Tapos kinompare mo yung post-test ng online learning at saka nagpa-test ka rin sa performance task rather ng online learning, tapos purely modular at saka yung parang independent learning, yung tipong walang nag-guide, no? Pero kung ang aalamin mong differences ay mga post-test lamang ng mga nabanggit kong tatlo, pwede na rin yung ANOVA. But if you will insert, you will use the initial scores, ibig sabihin yung pre-test, no? Initial score. Hindi na basta ANOVA gagamitin mo kasi isasama mo na pang-analyze ng variance, no? Ng pagkakaiba-iba. Yung initial score. Kung kanina puro final scores ang pinag-uusapan natin, ito meron ka ng initial score. Ang tawag doon is analysis of covariance. Kasi meron kang co-variable na hindi lang puro final result or post-test, pati pre-test isinama mo sa iyong analysis. So ang tawag doon is ANCOVA or analysis of covariance. All right. So I think that would be all for the summary of statistical treatment or tools that you need to learn about research, no? This is actually relating research to, relating statistics to research, no? So dalawa lamang, descriptive and inferential statistics. And importante, sa proposal pa lamang, sa paggawa pa lamang ng chapters 1 and 2, alam nyo na kagad ang inyong statistical treatment, no? Kasi bakit? Sa proposal pa lamang, nakapag-develop na kayo ng mga questions. At yung mga questions na yon dapat merong katapat na statistics. And dapat sa questions na yon, alam nyo whether the questions are univariable, bivariable, or multivariable. Kasi sasagutin yun ng statistics, ng descriptive statistics, at saka inferential statistics. Pag sinabing inferential statistics, you are either comparing or correlating. Kaya ang tanong, lahat ba ng research ay may hypothesis? Ang sagot ay hindi. Depende po sa klase ng research paper niyo po yun. If your research paper is comparing or correlating, doon lamang po kayo magkakaroon ng ng hypothesis. Pero kung ang research ninyo ay more of assessment or evaluation, ganon. Basta hindi correlation, hindi correlating at saka hindi comparing, then hindi nyo kailangan ng hypothesis. Ang hypothesis ay binubuo lamang kapag kayo ay nagko-compare ng 2 or more variables at nagko-correlate ng 2 or more variables. So, doon papasok ngayon yung multi or bivariate analysis. Kanina diniscuss ko na. They are part of inferential statistics. Kung univariate naman, tatapatan nyo lang siya ng measures of central tendencies. Nabanggit ko na kanina, mean, median, mode. Pwede rin yung mga dispersion, no? Yung standard deviation, gamit na gamit. Yung skewedness, pwede rin kurtosis. Pero ang kadalasang ginagamit dyan ay mean and standard deviation. Or kadalasan naman, weighted mean ang ginagamit. So, ang maganda ngayon sa statistics ay napakadali na. Basta meron kayong software, pwede na kayo mag-stat on your own. Pero dapat, alam nyo yung mga conditions and assumptions. Kaya kanina, sinamarize ko yung assumptions natin sa paggamit ng statistics. Alright? So, I am now opening the Zoom platform for any clarifications as regards to the discussion that we had for this afternoon. Naniniwala na ba kayo na connected ang research sa statistics?
Reporting to Malacanang.
Yes po.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes po, sir.
Alright, o sige. So, meron po ba kayong katanungan? Meron po ba kayong katanungan? So, okay lang kung may ng internet. Recorded naman ito. Ipopost ko to sa GC natin para mapanood nyo ulit. I am now ready to entertain questions or clarification. Miss Vilma. Miss Vilma Santos, balita ko tatakbo ka raw presidente ng Pilipinas 2022. Tama ba yun?
So sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mga bata si sir, oh.
Talaga?
Wala pong question. Malinaw po. Malinaw po
Ah,
yung pagkapaliwanag niyo po. Thank you po.
binanggit mo lang yung bumabata ako. Ikaw talaga gusto mo lang magkaroon ng +1 eh.
Hindi po. Hindi po, sir. Hindi po.
Mukha na bang 52?
Hindi po, sir. Hindi. Mga bata nga nakita ko yung post niyo doon sa may Hagunoy eh. Nang nag-visit kayo.
Ay, oo. Kahapon nasa
Ako yung estudyante.
talaga. Oo, nasa Hagon na
Opo.
yun. Oo. Kasi
Opo.
ganun ang role ng PSDS. Ganun tayong public servant eh. Umulan, bumagyo, bumaha. Kahit anong mangyari, tuloy pa rin ang edukasyon.
Opo. Heart of a leader. Thank you, sir.
Maraming salamat po. Monday to Friday, DepEd public servant ako. Pag Saturday, Sunday, grad school, lecturer. pero nakapambola si Madam Vilma. Oo,
Sir,
nakapamboto.
totoo yun. Totoo. Promise.
Siguro naka-t-shirt lang ako ngayon, kaya siguro mukhang bata.
Hindi po. Totoo, sir. Nakita kita ng personal. Doon sa bahay nyo. Tapos iba na ngayon. Kaya po congrats. Hindi ka tumatanda doon sa may public. Umabata ka pa.
Sa public. Ibig sabihin, hindi lang ako sa DepEd, no?
Opo. Dati po kasi di po ba nasa private kayo, ngayon nasa public na kayo. Mas bumabata pa kayo, ba't kami tumatanda?
Isa lang ang solusyon dyan. Love your work. If you love your work, in return, parang akala mo hindi ka na nag-work. Parang hindi na siya burden eh. Dapat there would come a time there should come a time na yung work sa inyo ay parang part na ng buhay ninyo, na parang hindi na siya yung parang, ay, mag-work na naman ako, ay. Parang magmumukha siyang responsibility, kumbaga. Gawin natin siyang parang part of life na natin, na parang pamilya natin, na parte ng buhay natin. Siyempre, priority ang family. Tapos gawin na natin parte ng buhay natin, na routine natin, ang work natin. If you do that, hindi mo mararamdaman yung work mo. Parang mararamdaman mo na lang na nag-enjoy ka kahit lumulusong ka sa tubig, no? At kahit marami kang, of course nasa DepEd ako ngayon, maraming mga sinasolve na mga issues and concerns. Hindi mawawala yon. Maghapon ako maraming kausap. Pero I make it sure na before ako umuwi, na-solve ko yung mga concerns na mga lumapit sa akin mga principals, na-solve ko yung mga problems na lumapit sa akin mga teachers, na mga parents, no, pati PTA, no, kinakausap ko. So I'm reaching them out, and I'm happy na nakakatulong ako in my own little way doon sa pagsosolve ng kanilang problem. Example, natutuwa ako na isa sa mga problem nila ay yung mga teachers sa school heads ay research. So therefore, yung mga taga-Division of Bulacan, maghintay kayo, darating ang panahon na magkakaroon ng division-wide research training, and ang inyong abang lingkod, ang resource speaker sa research training na gagawin sa buong division ng Bulacan. Yan ang advance info na yan. Inaayos lang ng division yung schedule tsaka yung memo. Lalabas yung memo. Buong division ng Bulacan, magkakaroon tayo ng research training. Kasi nung una, may research training is intended for Hagonoy lang muna. Dahil doon ako naka-assign. But our division superintendent realized na kung ako'y magle-lecture sa Hagonoy, isama ko na raw ang buong Bulacan. Kaya yung research lecture na yun, it's going to be a division-wide research training. Kung meron taga-SDO Bulacan dito, attend kayo. Kasi bukod sa meron division memorandum order na ilalabas, yun ay magkakaroon pa kayo ng certificate. O, pwede nyo magamit sa ranking ninyo, di ba? So, yun. The point is that, ba't ko sinishare yun, happy ako sa lahat ng ginagawa ko, lalo sa research na nakakapag-share ako sa aking mga kapwa empleyado. Tayo ay sa DepEd ay mga kapwa empleyado, magkakapantay tayo. Ang pinagkaiba-iba lang natin yung trabaho natin. Pero we are all employees na magkaka-level lang. Actually, ayoko isipin na merong mataas, merong mababa. Ang pinagkaiba-iba lang natin yung function natin. Now, if we are doing our function well, at na-achieve natin yung tinatawag natin targets, yung yung objectives natin, kung kayo ay principal, yung mga nasa SMEA, kung kayo ay teacher, yung nasa IPCRF ninyo, kung na-achieve nyo yun, ay dapat masaya kayo. Kasi ako masaya ako dahil na-achieve ko yung mga domains ko bilang PSDS. So far, kahit 4 na buwan pa lang ako sa DepEd, so far ay natutunan ko kaagad siya. Napag-aralan ko lahat ng pasikot-sikot sa DepEd. Kaya nga ako, nag-ikot ako for SMEA, nagkaroon na rin ako ng redirection that for next school year, the direction of all the schools under my supervision is that magkakaroon na kami, aside from online learning sa mga special sections, yung online learning ay ipapagawa ko na sa lahat ng levels. Pero ipapilot testing ko lang muna kasi kawawa yung mga iba na hindi nakakapag-online learning. Hindi sila, kasi iba talaga pa rin pag nakikita nila yung teacher nila eh. Kaya kung ka-Facebook ko kayo, mapapansin niyo pati online classroom observation ginagawa ko kasi part of my function is instructional supervision. Gusto ko yung mga gumagamit ng online learning ay maayos na implement, and gusto ko na naghahanap ako ng model online learning na ipapa-model ko, ipapa-adapt ko sa lahat ng teachers na ipapa-implement ko next school year, yung online learning sa lahat ng levels. Para halimbawa, kahit once a month, merong online learning, and then all the rest modular na. At least maranasan lang ng mga bata, kasi kawawa yung mga bata, hindi naman talaga fully na yung hindi naman lahat ng parents natin, sorry, I'm not underestimating them. Pero hindi naman lahat ng parents natin ay talagang merong passion to teach their children. Kung meron man, hindi rin naman lahat ng parents natin nakapagtapos ng pag-aaral. So baka mamaya mali-mali pa yung naituturo niyan. At ang reality, yung ating SLM ay may keto correction na. Kaya ang hirap i-measure ng performance ng mga bata. Kaya sabi ko during my ESMEA, nung umiikot ako palagi. During my talk with my with the principals, with the school head, sabi ko magre-realign tayo ng budget from repair and construction to purchasing of laptops, to purchasing of additional bandwidth, na magkakaroon tayo ng mga classroom for online learning. Kasi hindi naman lahat din ng teachers ay merong laptop sa bahay. Hindi lahat ng teachers ay merong internet na maganda sa bahay. So sabi ko dapat sa school makikita ang mga laboratories for online learning. So that's my vision for Hagonoy. At saka di ko naman din alam kung hanggang kailan ako sa Hagonoy kasi nag-iikutan ng mga PSDSS eh. Pero sa ngayon, yun ang aking vision na magkaroon ng online learning. Paunti-unti, hindi ko sinabing 100% implementation. Kaya nga sabi ko kahit once a month, for every section magkaroon ng once a month, magkaroon lang ng exposure yung mga bata. And just to share with you, kasi mga kasamaan ko naman kayo sa DepEd, I am constantly communicating with the DSWD or Department of Social Welfare and Development. Kasi one of their goals is to help the poorest of the poor. Kaya meron silang 4 Ps, no? The poorest of the poor, hindi lang basta sa pagkain at saka health, kundi education meron sila. So gusto ko makipag-tandem, I would like to have an agreement na yung ibinibigay nilang pera, baka meron pa silang another source of fund na hindi perang ibigay. Bukod sa pera na ibibigay, bigyan sila ng load, data, or kung pwede pakabitan ng internet yung mga mahihirap nating estudyante. Para sabi ko, pag nag-online, edi meron ng internet connection yung mga estudyante. Diba? O pwede nyo i-adapt yan, binibigyan ko kayo ng idea. Another thing, sabi ko, baka pwedeng pakiusapan, halimbawa, part ng 4 Ps. Di ba, pinapasok yan sa kanilang bangko, sa land bank ng mga beneficiaries. Why not have a talk with the parents na instead na yung pera ay kunin talaga na pera, ang DSWD ay i-encourage na yung pera na yun ay pambili ng gadget. Meron ng 4,000 ngayon na pwede ng pang-online, mga 3,000 to 4,000, mga simple gadgets, simple Android phone. O di ang maganda doon, kung ako masusunod, yung module ay wala naman nakaprint. Nandun na yung module. Tapos pwede pang mag-online class kasi may internet na, meron pang may Android phone or tablet. Wag laptop kasi malang laptop eh. Kahit start lang muna tayo sa mga Android phone na pwedeng pang online ng mga estudyante. So that's it. I'm envisioning na sana yung area ko, yung hinahawakan ko ngayong distrito ay maumpisahan na mamulat na sila sa online. Kasi I'd like to believe, alam ko narinig nyo rin, that our secretary has already announced that face-to-face still will not be allowed for the next school year. Tama ba? Narinig nyo ba yon?
Yes po.
Yes, sir. Yes po,
Yun. So,
sir.
kailangan natin mag-innovate. No? Sa mga kapwa ko, ka-DepEd, no? Sa mga ka-DepEd ko dito, sana po mag-try tayo mag-innovate ng something new. Kaya nga innovate kasi something new siya eh. Hindi kung ano na lang yung nandyan, yun na lang yung ating, yun na lang yung ating gagamitin. Sana may paranas din na, kasi yung mga estudyante nami-miss na tayo. Gusto nila tayo makita. Kaya lang, hindi personally. Face-to-face is still not allowed. Do not go to their houses kasi that is not allowed. Pwede naman kayo makita, pwede kayo makapagturo katulad ng ginagawa ko. Bumibisita ako sa mga classroom nila pero online. So, nasa biyahe ako, may link ako, pinapanood ko sila online. So, 2-in-1. Natutuwa na yung mga estudyante dahil nakikita nila yung kanilang PSDS. Natutuwa pa yung kanilang teacher dahil gusto nga nila ako makita. So at least kahit online ganito, nakikita din nila kami. Akala nila classmate lang daw nila. Joke lang. So yun. Tsaka nakakatuwa na mahuhusay ang mga estudyante natin. Sa totoo lang, mahuhusay. Ang kailangan lang natin ma-reach out natin sila. I was observing several online classes. Yung mga bata ay talagang sumasagot, nagpa-participate. Kahit yung iba nakakatuwa sumagot, pero talaga namang lalo na, of course, mother tongue gamit natin, pero ang natuwa ko dun sa English na subject, some of our students can really speak in English online. Take note elementary students ito. Parang sabi ko, I'm watching a private school classroom. So, walang imposible pala. Kaya lang kailangan natin magtulungan. Kailangan lang talaga nating maging open-minded na pwede pa nating mabago yung kung ano man yung nangyayari ngayon. Mag-i-end tayo ng July 10, para na ako nagho-homily sa inyo, no? Mag-i-end tayo ng July 10. Baka sa next school year, baka pwede natin ma-improve yung ating yung delivery ng ating instruction para mas masaya, para may bago tayong ini-inject na innovation. Kaya ngayon, ang monitoring ko ngayon, pinapadala na lang ako ng mga links, link para doon sa online classes. So kahit nasaan ako, kahit ongoing meeting ko, napapanood ko sila sa cellphone ko. Kasi yung cellphone ko is nakakonect din ako sa internet. So actually, ang online ngayon, pwede ka na mag-multiple tasking Habang nag-zoom ka, nakapag-online observation ng mga teachers. Pero random naman 'yon. Ang naging problema ko lang ngayon, halos lahat ng teachers gusto magpa-observe. So ang problema ko time, hindi ko naman ma-observe lahat kasi random nga lang dahil hindi ko naman trabaho talaga 'yon. Pinakatrabaho ng principal 'yon. Kaya binibigay ko sa principal 'yon. Ako naman ay kumbaga just to random lang, just to see what's going on dun sa kanilang online classes. So yun. Sorry, napahaba yung aking kwento, Miss Vilma. Si Miss Vilma kasi marami kasing comment Sige, salamat Miss Vilma. Mr. Mark Joseph, are you raising your hand?
Yes po, Doc. Not related po sa yung sa next step po sana dun sa after po ng pre-oral. Doc, ano po yung gagawin ko naman? Session na po.
Next step para sa after ng pre-oral?
Opo, bali, paano po yung gagawin po namin?
Nakapag-compre ka na?
Hindi pa po, Doc. After po nitong sem na to, saka po ako magko-compre po.
Alright, so ang gagawin mo ngayon, next sem, pwede ka na mag-enroll ng compre, and then mag-enroll ka next sem. So ang suggestion ko, kung approved na yung paper mo, at kung yung instrument mo ay approved na rin, reliable na siya, at meron ng Cronbach's Alpha, pwede ka na mag-data gathering habang nasa period ka ng compre para the following trimester, when you reach the thesis writing stage, ay meron ka ng data na pwede mong i-analyze para sa chapters 3 and 4. Pero importante po sa mga nakapag-proposal defense na lahat ng recommendations ay na-incorporate ninyo, no? Incorporate nyo po yung lahat ng recommendations kasi po hahanapin po yan ng inyong panel members during the final defense. Pag yun ay hindi na-incorporate, magkakaroon kasi kayo ng critic. Yung critic, magdo-double check din siya kung siya ay, para siyang magkaano siya parang magko-co-advisor ang critic na i-ensure niya na yung recommendations during the proposal defense are incorporated in your paper. So I suggest that you incorporate the recommendations. Kung wala pa, paki-follow up kay Chris o kaya kay Jen yung proceedings ng defense nung last Sunday. Tapos paki-incorporate na po yung recommendations. And then you will enroll for Compre. And then while you are enrolled in Compre, pwede kang mag-multitasking. Nagre-review ka for Compre at the same time, nagde-data gathering ka na. Pero before ka mag-data gathering, kung ikaw ay taga-SDO Bulacan, mag-seek ka na ng permission, gawa ka na ng letter. Meron akong in-upload sa GC natin ng template na permission letter, mga consent form, mga ethics review. Pwede mo nang i-accomplish yun kasi kadalasan doon nagtatagal. So, accomplish ka agad yun kasi para pag in-approve ng division ng iyong implementation, pwede ka na mag-data gathering. Pwede ka na magpabuo ng online, take note, walang face-to-face online survey instrument or online.
Bali po, Doc, yung mga comment and suggestion po ng panelist ng Sunday kay Sir Kiko and Miss Jen ko po ipapollow up.
Yes po. Kasi ifo-forward sa kanya ni Miss Secretary, ni Dr. Banji Dazo. If you remember, we have Dr. Dazo with us during the proposal defense. He's the one summarizing all the recommendations. Kaya para sa kaalaman ng lahat na nandito during the proposal defense, swerte nyo dahil hindi kayo magte-take down notes. Merong somebody who is taking down notes of all the recommendations. And then after that, iintayin nyo lang. Jen, paki-follow up na nga kay Dr. Dazo. Kasi parang naka 1 week na, no? Last Sunday tayo nag-defend. So, dapat yung meron na ngayon. Ipapa-follow up ko kagad, Boss Mark. Pasensya na.
Sir, thank you po, Doc. Boss, grabe si Sir. Ay, sabi si Doc. Thank you po, Doc.
Pasensya na po, papapala ko kagad. Right away.
Thank you po, Doc. Doc Alvin.
Di ba, Mark Joseph? May GC kayo nang nag-defense kayo?
Apo, Doc.
Doon ipopost yung proceedings. Pakiantay na lang po. If not today, tomorrow. Pag hindi, pupunta ko ng MC, papagalitan ko lahat ng tao doon.
Thank you po, Doc.
Ilang bagal nila.
Oo nga. God bless po. Thank you po.
Doc, may tanong po.
Yes,
regarding din po doon sa pre-oral.
Okay. Nakapag-oral ka na, di ba, Miss Nature?
Sure po. Nature ba?
Nature ba?
Kasi no-cry niyo apelido ko, kaya ayan, tuloy-tuloy na tayo dyan. Sir, tanong ko, di ba, hihintay namin yung, actually, hinihintay ko nga po, sabi ko, iniisip ko kung ipopost ba yon sa GC or ipopost doon sa email namin kasi nagbigay din kami ng email. Since nakapag-pre-oral na po kami, tapos compre kami by next SEM, ang tanong ko po, Doc, may kailangan pa ba kaming i-accomplish sa subject nyo? O wala na po? Dahil okay na po kami bilang pre-oral.
Wala na, i-grade na kayo.
Yay! Thank you po.
So far, yung lahat ng nag-defense nung last time, ang grade ninyo, nakita ko parang ang average ay nasa 125.
Wow!
So congratulations sa lahat ng nag-proposal defense kasi nakita naman ng panel members na maayos yung paper. Ganoon naman ng panel members Pag nakita nila na maayos yung problem statement, yung title, kaya importante yung checking. Kasi pag na-check ko yan, more or less, konting-konti na lang ang recommendation, hindi siya overhaul, no? So more or less, nakita ko natuwa yung mga panel members. Meron pa nga ako nakita doon na merong nagbigay ng isang panel member flat 1 Kaya lang, nung in-average, 125. Pero at least nakita ko rin na natuwa yung mga,
Tuwa sila.
natuwa sila sa presentation ninyo.
Ay,
Natuwa sila dun sa paper dahil majority maayos.
Ay, thank you, Doc.
Thank you po,
Kasi
Doc.
lahat ng kaba namin at nervyos at lahat-lahat na, Diyos mio.
Congratulations sa inyo lahat. At maraming salamat kayo. Tapos na kayo sa proposal, ma-attend pa rin kayo. Kasi kakailangan ninyo pa rin for your future implementation. Kaya pag meron akong mga synchronous classes, a-attend pa rin kayo. Kasi it's still not your loss. It will be for your gain pa din.
Opo.
Kasi pag ako'y nagsisynchronous, may mga bago akong ibinibigay na mga knowledge, no? Hindi naman ako nag-uulit, no? Kadalasan yan bago. Kasi kapag meron na akong na-lecture, ay pinupost ko na lang yung video sa GC. Napapansin niyo ba?
Opo, Doc.
Hindi ko lang alam.
Pinapanood namin.
Hindi ko lang alam kung pinapanood ninyo.
Pinapanood, Doc, paulit-ulit. Lalo po ngayon na next sem is compre. Kailangan paspasan na ulit kahit basta review.
So ito recorded dito, ipopost ko ulit. Makakatulong ito sa compre nyo ng stat. Tapos po, yung nasa research, yung chapters 1 and 2, panoorin nyo kung paano gumawa ng chapters 1 and 2. Tapos po, yung nasa stat, panoorin nyo po ron. Meron akong discussion about how to use SPSS. Meron akong video about how to use SPSS. Hindi ko na uulitin ang discussion kasi nandun na. Malilim na po yung discussion ko ng how to use SPSS. No? Ano po? Sige.
Thank you po, Doc.
Okay na.
Salamat.
Dr. Nature, okay na ba?
Ikaw talaga, Doc. Na-okay mo na naman ako. Thank you po, Doc. God bless po.
Kasi nakapag-proposal ka na after the final defense, pwede ka na mag-EDD kasi tapos ka na ng MA, di ba?
Ay, nako nga po. Thank you, Doc.
Nurse pa lang kayo, next time magiging doctor na kayo.
Yes, Doc. Salamat po.
Sige, Miss Argeline Ramo.
Magandang hapon, sir. Kami po yung transfer, sir, from Manila po. Ang concern ko po kasi, sir, nung nag-compre po ako sa dati kong school sa NTUC po, tapos lumipat po ako sa public school, hindi pa po ako kasi nakakakuha ng permit to study. Ngayon po, nung nalaman po ng school ko po sa Arellano sa Manila po na naka-enroll po ako sa MA uli, hinihingian na po ako, sir, ng permit to study. Okay lang po ba na dadalhin ko po yun pag nagpa-check ako ng chapter 1 and 2, sir?
Wait lang ha. Hindi may permanent permit to study. Kasi ang permit to study nyo, ang pumipirma ron ay dean at saka registrar.
Apo, sir.
Copy ka ba ng permit to study?
Hard copy yung ibinigay dito, sir, nung nakaraang linggo po eh.
Ang gawin mo,
Pero,
scan mo siya ng malinaw.
Apa, sir. Apa.
Ipadala mo na lang kay Miss Jen or kay Kiko, kay Sir Kiko.
Apa, sir.
Then, pwede nating pa-attach siya na lang ng e-signature.
Okay po, sir.
Para magkaroon ka ng permit to study.
Okay po. Maraming salamat, sir. Salamat po.
Okay. Tapos, di na kayo bumalik after ng checking.
Di ba, sir, nagkaroon ako ng major revision kasi yung format po na nagamit po ay mali po. Pero ngayon, sir, pag balik ko po bukas, kami po, ina-assure po namin na maayos po talaga yung papel at pinaghandaan po namin, sir.
Hindi ka pa bubukas, ha? Sige.
Opo. Salamat, sir.
Sige. See you tomorrow. Sa mga mapapacheck tomorrow, maglista na ng pangalan para remember, June, ngayon, 26 na. Hanggang July 31 lang tayo. Pag di kayo nakapag-proposal defense until July 31, your grade will be Iglesia ni Cristo na, INC. Kaya dapat kayo, pa-check na. May time pa. Bukas I am allotting may Sunday for checking. Imagine niyo kahit Sunday, nag-check pa rin ako. Dapat nagpapahinga na ako. Tapos Monday to Friday, lumalangoy ako sa Hagonoy. Okay, Argeline, okay ba yung mo? Nasagot ko ba yung tanong mo?
Apo, sir. Maraming salamat po. Salamat po talaga, sir.
Sige. Miss Vilma, are you still raising your hand? Or hindi mo lang naibaba?
Sir, di ko lang po na ibaba.
Ay, hindi, mga ngalay ka, pakibaba na yan.
Oo nga. Opo, opo.
Kaya pa nakataas yung kamay mo. Alright?
Sorry po, sir. Sorry.
Okay lang, no problem. No problem.
Thank
So,
you po, thank you.
pa-shout out sa anak ko today, graduation. Oh, shout out. Shout out sa gumraduate na anak ni Miss Alma Castro. Nandiyan ba yung anak mo, Miss Alma? Congratulations to Alfred Jairus. Gumraduate ng ano bang pinagraduate niya? Miss ano? Elementary, high school, college, or doctoral? Eh, nauna pa sa'yo, no? Teka lang, ano bang pinagtapusan niya? Congratulations, Miss. Congrats, Alfred Jairus. Ang iyong mami ay very proud sa'yo, Alma J. Castro. Kaya lang hindi ko lang alam kung elementary, junior high, or senior high school, or college. Ano ba yan, Miss Alma? Elementary. Wow, congratulations. Alfred Jairus, congratulations sa iyo. Pinasaya mo ang mami mo sa iyong accomplishments. Very soon.
Thank you po.
Okay, very soon. Mami mo naman ang mag-graduate sa masteral. Very soon. Ilang semester na lang kayo naman ang gagraduate sa masteral.
Sana po.
Tapos yung anak mo, elementary pa lang marunong na sa research, nakikinig pala siya sa research discussion.
Yes, Doc, nakikinig po.
Statistics. Okay, sige. So meron pa bang katanungan? Kasi I think I am done. Meron pa ba? Meron pang mga comment. Thank you, Dr. Noki. Thank you. Salamat din po. Nakaka-inspired. Maraming salamat. Naging part kami ng MC. Oo nga. Salamat naman at na-inspire ka. Alright. Sige, maraming salamat at kayo may natutunan. At kung wala ng tanong, ay pwede ng I'm done. I'm done with my discussion for today. I-stop ko na yung recording. Stop recording.